He appeared as a specter wandering the fringes of society, etched by 2 decades of utter seclusion that had etched profound furrows into Elias Hawthorne's rugged countenance. His palms had not sensed the tenderness of human contact since the fateful day. He vowed to shun all touch. Yet, upon discovering her bound to that ancient maple tree, crimson stains marking her form and her awareness teetering on the brink, the fortress he had erected for his own safeguard teetered on the verge of collapse. The dawn haze lingered among the firs as Elias traversed the rugged hillside path, a biannual pilgrimage undertaken solely for provisions. His secluded lodge perched 3 miles aloft, concealed in a realm where no wanderer dared venture. Such was his design, such was the necessity. His heavy boots ground against the frost-laden foliage as he neared the meadow, where the antiquated mercantile once stood. But an anomaly disrupted the earth. Quietude bore an unusual weight, oppressive and foreboding. Then his gaze fell upon her. A youthful woman was lashed to the colossal maple with sturdy cords, her auburn locks clotted with gore, her garment rent at the seam. Her lids were sealed, yet her bosom heaved in feeble undulations. She endured, albeit precariously. Elias halted abruptly, every fiber urging retreat, evasion, denial of the sight. For 20 years, he had evaded precisely this predicament, sort demanding proximity to another soul, the sort compelling concern. Yet, as he lingered in stasis, torn between history and this instant, her eyelids quivered ajar. They revealed irises as verdant as meadow blades, and upon fixing on him, they conveyed an element absent from his existence for eras, optimism. She attempted utterance, but merely a murmur escaped, her lips shaped syllables inaudible from his vantage. Elias sensed his meticulously fortified barriers fracturing. Each stride nearer signified a departure from his sanctuary. Each lingering second drew him toward the peril he had fled for 2 decades. Her cranium slumped anew, insensible, sanguine fluid oozing from a laceration on her brow, discoloring the bindings. Whosoever inflicted this had departed, yet return loomed possible. And should they encounter him, he balled his fists, waging an internal battle. Departure remained viable, self-preservation attainable. But as he pivoted to flee, a chilling auditory intrusion assailed him, the remote thunder of equine hooves, multiple mounts advancing swiftly through the woodland. Unbeknownst to him, aiding her would compel confrontation with the precise catalyst of his exile. And the approaching riders were no mere marauders, they embodied the identical scourge that shattered his existence 20 years prior. The equine cadence amplified, perhaps mere moments distant. Elias regarded the comatose woman, then the escape route. 2 decades of endurance implored flight, yet a profounder essence, presumed interred eternally, propelled him toward her. His digits trembled as they contacted the abrasive strands. The instant evoked a torrent of recollection's final occasion. He endeavored salvation. The ultimate instance of affection, the concluding episode where his decisions wrought devastation. She roused as he manipulated the fastenings, her gaze sharpening, disclosing her youth, perhaps mid-20s, with a resolute mandible amid affliction. "Please," she rasped, her timbre frail. "They'll return." They sought additional bindings. Additional bindings. Elias's innards plummeted. These were no transient pilferers. They harbored intentions necessitating her prolonged vitality. His fingers assailed the entanglement. The cords constricting her wrists were resistance, had abraded flesh. Each tick resembled eternity as the hooves neared. Voices emerged now, coarse mirth resonating in the morn. "Can you ambulate?" he queried, his utterance scarcely audible, peculiar after prolonged reticence. She assented, though exertion evident. "I believe so. My name is Amelia Whitaker." Elias withheld reciprocation. Nomenclature forged bonds. Bonds bred attachment. Attachment birthed anguish he had forsworn. Yet as the ultimate not yielded, and she slumped forth, he reflexively intercepted her. The junction electrified him, her mass upon his torso, the fervor of her epidermis, the reliance in her momentary reliance. His ramparts shattered irreparably. He recollected humanity's essence. But the dialogues proximated. He discerned phrases. "She'd best remain, or Voss will flay us." Whither could she flee? We secured her firmly. Elias perceived Amelia Tauton in his embrace. Vossovan post 20 years, that appellation struck akin to assault. Harlan Voss, the fiend who ravaged all, who transmuted him into apparition. Amelia must have detected his response, for she withdrew to scrutinize his visage. "You recognize them?" He peered into her emerald orbs, mirroring his dread. He could divulge veritailudate how Harlan Voss obliterated his life once, seized the beloved and warped that devotion into carnage and shrieks and culpability so burdensome. It propelled him skyward. But ere response, the cavaliers erupted from the arboreal veil. For horsemen, spearheaded by a silhouette Elias identified despite temporal lapse, Harlan Voss perched erect in stirrups, his obsidian gaze surveying the expanse until alighting on the vacant cords dangling from the maple. Then those eyes locked on Elias, a languid, vicious grin unfurling across Voss's countenance. "Well, I'll be condemned. Elias Hawthorne, I pondered when you'd emerge from your burrow." The atmosphere crackled with 2 decades of unresolved vendetta. Voss alighted deliberately, his spurs chiming per pace, while the trio remained astride, palms on armaments, encircling Elias and Amelia loosely. 20 years, Hawthorne. 20 years I've speculated your fate post that eve." Voss's inflection bore identical frigid whimsy Elias recalled. "Heard you descended into madness. Heard you terminated yourself. Yet here you stand, enacting savior anew." Elias interposed betwixt Voss and Amelia, his frame rigid. Amelia clasped his limb, her quiver palpable. Yet she refrained from cringing resilience unyielding by Voss. "Release her," Elias declared, his tone unwavering amid internal tempest. "Your grievance lies with me." Voss chortled, akin to shattering crystal. "My grievance, lad? You persist in ignorance of your toll that night." He motioned toward Amelia. "This comely morsel fetches prime coin from discerning patrons northward. But you," his gaze gleamed malevolently, "you're valued far greater. You're worth tormenting." Reminiscences inundated Elias like deluge, Rebecca's countenance, her wails. How Voss exploited his adoration as leverage, compelling election betwixt her salvation and rectitudeth selection that demolished both. "That transpired eons ago," Elias uttered. "Not sufficiently," Voss retorted, extracting his firearm, yet not directing at Elias but at Amelia. "I gleaned a lesson that eve. 20 years past. The optimal method to wound a man like you isn't termination, it's compelling. Observation while you raise all he cherishes." Amelia erect despite the barrel. "I ignore your history, but I'll not serve as your marionette." She regarded Elias. "Nor should you." Her words pierced his inertia. This differed from Rebecca. Amelia proved sturdier. She solicited alliance, not rescue. Voss noted the shift. His smirk wavered. "Touching. But you see, Hawthorne harbors frailty for imperiled maidens, doesn't he? Narrate about Rebecca. Narrate how your gallantry slew your beloved." The barbs struck true. Elias felt ancient remorse surging, menacing submersion. But Amelia's palm located his, digits interlacing. Her contact anchored, tangible, contemporaneous, spectral, not mnemonic. "I disregard yesteryear," she murmured, gaze affixed. "I concern now." Voss elevated his weapon. "How endearing. But now, you're both accompanying us. Saddle up, Hawthornian, should you attempt valor. I'll embed lead in her lovely cranium and compel you to bear the corpse." Elias surveyed the equestrians, gauging spans and probabilities. For armed adversaries versus unarmed recluse and wounded female, prudence dictated capitulation, awaiting subsequent chance. But as Voss signaled the mounts, Elias detected in Amelia's gaze a subtle inclination toward dense foliage aft the maple. She schemed, yet she remained oblivious that adhering her stratagem entailed absolute faith in anathersamething Elia. Eschewed for 20 years. The prior instance culminated in slaughter. Amelia's scheme proved rudimentary and frantic. As Voss urged them equineward, she abruptly faltered, exclaiming as if her maimed limb yielded. Instinctively, Elias advanced to sustain her, and amid that diversion, she seized soil and conifer spines, flinging at Voss's visage. The brigand imprecated, recoiling, scraping oculars. Amelia seized Elias's hand, hauling him into verdant density aft the maple. For a fraction, he vacillated. Flight signified dedication to this trajectory, to solicitude for her outcome. Then Voss's armament bellowed, projectile fragmenting bark proximate Amelia's crown, and Elias's preservation reflexes dominated. He encircled her midriff and plunged into shrubbery as the trio discharged. Limbs lacerated attire as they plunged through verdure. Rearward, Voss bellowed directives, timber savage with ire. Spare Themi demand them vital. Disperse, they shan't elude far. Elias guided Amelia profounder into sylvan depths, tracing antiquated fauna routes memorized during solitary epics. His lodge lay 3 miles ascendant, yet attainment necessitated traversing exposed terrain where Voss's cohort might espy. "Can you maintain pace?" he inquired as they concealed aft tumbled timber. Amelia's pallor was ashen, coagulated sanguine on brow, yet her gaze blazed resolve. "I can maintain. Query is, whither proceed? For if you envision mere evasion till they relent, you misunderstand men like Voss. They persist." She spoke truth. Voss pursued him across 20 years. Man epitomized tenacity. And now Elias furnished fresh incentive for pursuit. "There's a locale," Elias stated. "A lodge, obscured, fortifiable. But access proves perilous." Amelia concluded, "All's perilous now. Yet I'd perish combating than permit recapture." She scrutinized him. What signified he regarding Rebecca about causing demise? The interrogation assaulted like blow. For 20 years, he'd evaded Rebecca's utterance, even cognition. But huddled aft this bowl, projectiles whizzing aloft, Amelia's emerald eyes exacting verity, he articulated, "Rebecca was my spouse," he confided softly. "Voss abducted her, employed as lure to compel illicit act. I believed salvation and integrity concurrent. I erred. What befell her?" Elias sealed lids, envisioning Rebecca as vividly as adjacency. "She perished cause I credited Voss's pledge of liberation post-compliance. I yielded. He slew her regardless, merely to demonstrate dominance." Amelia silenced momentarily, then contacted his limb. "I'm not her," she affirmed, "and this isn't 20 years past. If you anticipate my demise for guilt augmentation, you'll disappoint." Despite adversity, Elias nearly grinned. Amelia Whitaker diverged utterly from Rebecca. Rebecca embodied gentleness, credulity, discerning virtue universally. Amelia constituted honed steel, enrobed in tenacity. Proximate branch fracture truncated discourse. Voss's minions neared, disseminating systematically, vocalizing coordination. "We must advance," he hissed. "Adhere closely, tread where I treadn't whatsoever transpires, abstain retrospection." But as they primed departure, Amelia clutched his arm. "Elias, if trust mutual, I must disclose why Voss seized me. It's not mere pecuniary." Elias petrified, gripped firm on Amelia's limb. Pursuit's clamor intensified, yet her inflection intimated urgency. "Disclose," he murmured. Amelia's gaze flitted pursuitward, then reverted. "Voss didn't haphazardly capture me. He sought me deliberately. My true nomenclature isn't Amelia Whitaker, it's Amelia Caldwell." The designation thundered Elias. Caldwell, Judge Theodore Caldwell, the arbiter striving territorial order 20 years prior. The quarry Voss evaded when abducting Rebecca. Judge Theodore Caldwell was my progenitor, Amelia persisted hastily. Voss assassinated him 6 months post your wife's incident. Staged as mishap, but I discerned. I've hunted Voss thence, amassing proof, constructing indictment. Elias gaped, cognition swirling. "You're not casual cure. Bait," she avowed starkly. "I permitted capture for operational proximity. I possess concealed evidence indicting him and syndicate. But I unanticipated your intervention, complicating. Brush disruption approximated 50 yards. Voss's timber resonated. They shan't distant. Inspect every concealment." Elias sensed train shift. All presumed comprehension erroneous. Amelia no ingenuous damsel requiring rescue hunted akin Voss, and he ensnared midst. "So what am I to you?" he queried, barely audible. "Further bait?" Amelia's mien softened. "You were intended. Voss obsesses your location 20 years. Hearing hermit tales these peaks, I speculated. But witnessing your expression upon discovering method authenticity undeniable. How discern? Cause 6 years honed deception detection, falsehood spotting, manipulation. Your gaze harbored verity." She clasped tighter. "But Elias evidence I compiled on Voss encompasses veracity of Rebecca's fatal night." Words arrested his core. What imply? Voss slew Rebecca, not mere tormente eliminated her. for uncovering operational vulnerability destructive even then. You didn't falter, she doomed upon discovery. Ere Elias assimilated, gunfire pealed alarmingly near. A voice proclaimed, detected trail, this direction. Elias decided astonishingly. Rather flight, he confronted pursuit's bearing. Where evidence concealed. In saddle pouch but Voss possesses now. Then we shan't flee to lodge, he asserted. We retrieve your evidence. Amelia stared. That's suicidal. For them. Perhaps. But 20 years passed. I permitted Voss plunder all cause fear combat. I shan't reiterate. He gazed her emerald orbs, glimpsing Rebecca momentarily, then Amelia distinctly. Besides, you affirmed, you're not Rebecca, and I'm not identical man who permitted her demise. But unbeknownst, Voss anticipated precisely this. Evidence Amelia presumed hidden constituted fabricated data, and Voss utilized both to lure entity far perilous than conceivable. They navigated Sylvan like phantoms, Elias guiding Amelia in expansive arc reconverging clearing unexpectedly. 20 years Montani existence instilled patience, muteness, every pace deliberate, twig evasion as they neared Voss's encampment. Elias spied mounts tethered proximate maple where Amelia bound. Her saddle pouch dangled enticingly, yet guarded. Voss centered clearing, examining imprints. Trio dispersed, trailing decoys. Outlaw elder now, tresses gray-streaked, yet predatory assurance intact. Their proximate, Voss hailed. Hawthorne's softened senescence. 20 years passed, tracking him proved arduous. Amelia whispered, he's provoking ire, inciting folly. True, Voss baited akin Rebecca. But now Elias advantaged game knowledge. He assessed, Voss rifle-backed, pistol-hipped, mounts fidgety, set up anomalous. Abide, Elias breathed. Like Hades, she retorted. Together or not. Air contention, Voss's voice severed. Hawthorne, I sense presence. Emerge manlier skirt hiding anew. Words pricked, but Elias composed. Noted Voss's recurrent glances opposite Trine, expectant. Trap, Elias realized. Additional forces positioned. Amelia concurred grimly. Then alternate tactic. She extracted from rent-a-tire diminutive derringer, concealed hitherto. One discharge must matter. Where? 6 years scheming, perpetually prepared. She inspected adeptly. But query, when fusillade commences, can you terminate Voss? Hesitation via Rebecca guilt dooms us. Query eviscerated core. 20 years evaded violence. Confrontation, decisions vital. Became specter to elude such junctures. But Amelia's resolute visage, emerald steel, illuminated transformation upon untying her. I can execute requisite, he affirmed. Voss's voice anew, all day Hawthorne. Prolongation amplifies delight upon capturing your damsel. Amelia's mandible tensed. That settles. I'll distract, you procure pouch. Amelia, no peerless. She regarded perhaps affectionately. For 2 decade mute, caring swift. Ere impediment, Amelia emerged, derringer concealed. Seeking me, Voss. Voss whirled, hand armament ward. Well, the hare exits burrow. Where's sentinel? Departed, Amelia flat. You desire me? Seize. Voss grinned, uncertainty evident. Deviation from anticipation. You're fabricating. Hawthorne abandons not, heroic excess. Then comprehension deficient, Amelia countered. As Voss advanced, Elias spied rearward motion, 3 additional riflemen materializing. Barrels elevated. Amelia strode crossfire oblivious. Snare constricting, seconds decisive. Salvage Amelia, forfeit evidencier evidence pursuit. Witness another demise via choices. Time decelerated. Elias beheld rifleman aiming, Voss grasping, Amelia's digit trigger taut. 20 years isolation unprepared this absolute election. But Montani endurance taught, impossible odds, alter paradigm. Elias emerged, yet not Amelia or Mount Sword advanced Voss directly, palms aloft. You crave me, Harlan? Behold. Conclude 20-year inception, solely us. Voss paused, armament semi-extracted. Rifleman maintained Amelia lock, attention bifurcated. Unplanned. You deem me imbecile, Hawthorne? Succumb noble forfeit? No forfeit. Elias advanced. Verity. 2 decade hunt cause I sole prove Judge Caldwell's fate. Amelia's orbs widened, comprehension instantaneous. Elias wagered totality on ruse, diverting Voss from her. Voss's mien darkened. "You know not. I know you slew Judge Caldwell for operational proximity. No Rebecca unearthed evidence linking territorial corruption Governor Ward. No 20-year terror I might recall her pre-demise disclosure. Utter fabrication, yet struck." Voss paled, then flushed fury. Rebecca disclosed naught. Dead upon rival. Words suspended confessional. Voss aired realization, belated. When arrived, Elias pressed. "How location knowledge unless perpetrator?" Voss fully drew. Elias chest aimed. Silence. Silence immediate. But Elias persisted. Truth. Survival unanticipated. Grief or inebriation presumed fatal. Yet here, recollecting all Rebecca imparted. "I commanded silence." Voss shrieked. Then Amelia acted. Voss fixated. She derringer raised, discharged. Crack. Rifleman toppled pained. Clearing erupted anarchy. Remaining rifleman swiveled Amelia Ward. Elias dove Voss. 20 years labor fortified. Wrath-fueled velocity. Tackled midriff, grounding both. Voss's armament skittered Maple Ward. They tussled, 2-decade enmity in savage strikes. But Voss younger, contact accustomed, dislodged Elias, scrambled weapon Ward. Amelia pinned log aft, gunfire steady. Soul shot expended, reload temporal luxury absent. Voss gripped armament as Elias lunged anew. Outlaw prepared, rolling, bearing. 20 years awaited, Voss snarled, trigger tensing. But ensuing proved bonds surpassed demise. Truths defy interment. Gunshot echoed, yet not Voss's. Amelia seized wounded's rifle, perforating Voss's shoulder, spinning him maple base. Armament flew. Remaining rifleman, leader fallen, cover broke, horse fled. Amelia permitted, Voss drew quarry. Elias rose labored, regarded bleeding Voss. 2-decade flight, guilt, isolation life destroyer prostrate. Conclude, Voss gasped gritted. Entitled. But Elias armament eschewed. Approached Amelia, tree leaning, depleted yet intact. Her emerald search his. Why spare? Cause on not him, Elias simple. And you require testimony. Amelia smiled. Despite, pouch evidence not mere total. Caldwell murder, Rebecca death, corruption. But confession ties. Voss laughed bitter. Confess. A demolition? Already, Amelia said, extracting dress device. Recorded Sarah admission presence demise. Sufficient noose, Harlan Voss. Outlaw blanched, outmaneuvered by hunted. Elias device marveled. 20 years guilt born, failure presumed. You failed none, Amelia firm. Voss slew cause evidence threat. Died justice guarding, akin father. As sun ascended, Elias aided Voss secure. Wound tend. Couldn't exsanguinate pretrial. Wounded fled companions, but Voss prize. Now Elias queried, clearing departure. Now territorial marshal. Father evidence, confession, witness purge decades poison. Elias mountain glanced, lodge path, solitude. Post that, Amelia neared, gold fleck, emerald visible. Choice, mountain return, another 20 solitary recall vitality. Humanity, caring capacity. Haven't contacted 20 years quiet. I know, she handtook, digits warm real. But saved me, self-salvaged. As departed, Voss stumbling bound, Elias felt to decade absent, hope. Not justice, revenge, closure but future beyond survival. Amelia right, not Rebecca, not broken fleer. Some prisons other built, some self, sometimes another's valor reveals key possession. 6 months had elapsed since the dramatic capture of Harlan Voss in that fateful forest clearing, where Elias Hawthorne had reclaimed his humanity and forged an unbreakable bond with Amelia Caldwell. But the hard-won peace they had achieved was about to be shattered by layers of betrayal that ran deeper than either could have imagined. Elias stood on the wide wooden porch of his modest home in the heart of Willow Creek, a quintessential American frontier town nestled in the rolling foothills of the Montana Territory. The house, built with his own hands from sturdy pine logs hauled down from the mountains, overlooked the bustling main street where wagons creaked under loads of supplies, and cowboys herded cattle through the dust. Willow Creek had always been a melting pot of dreamers and desperate dozmeners chasing silver strikes, ranchers staking claims on vast grasslands, and merchants peddling everything from flour sacks to Colt revolvers. In the wake of Voss's trial and execution, the town had breathed a collective sigh of relief. Corrupt sheriffs had been ousted, honest judges appointed, and the territorial government had even sent federal agents to oversee the transition. Elias had testified in the packed courtroom, his voice steady as he recounted the horrors of 20 years past, with Amelia's quiet support anchoring him against the tide of memories. Yet, as the crisp autumn wind carried the scent of burning leaves and distant wood smoke, Elias couldn't shake a nagging unease. He had chosen this life building a home near Amelia's reclaimed family estate, a grand Victorian structure on the town's outskirts that her father, Judge Theodore Caldwell, had once used as both residence and courtroom. Amelia had transformed it into a hub for justice seekers. Poring over case files late into the night, Elias helped where he could, repairing roofs for widows left destitute by Voss's raids, teaching young boys how to track game in the hills, and occasionally riding out with the new marshal, Barrett Kane, to scout for trouble. His hands, once averse to any human touch, now found solace in simple acts of connection: a handshake with a grateful neighbor, a gentle clasp of Amelia's fingers under the stars. Amelia approached from the street that evening, her horse kicking up small clouds of dust as she dismounted. Her auburn hair was pinned back under a practical hat, and her green eyes held a mix of determination and weariness. "Elias," she called, tying the reins to the hitching post. "Marshal Kane has news. There's unrest brewing up in the Silver Ridge mines. Some of Voss's old lieutenants are whispering about unfinished business, claiming the evidence against him was forged." Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cooling air. "Forged? We had the recordings, the ledgers, eyewitness accounts. What's their angle?" She climbed the steps, her boots echoing softly, and leaned against the railing beside him. "Revenge, mostly. But there's a name attached: Garrett Sloan. He was Voss's enforcer back in the day, the one who handled the dirty work in the shadows. Folks thought he died in a cave-in years ago, but rumors say he's alive, rallying disgruntled miners with promises of gold and payback." The name stirred dark recollections in Elias. Sloan had been there the night Rebecca Deeda's knife had gleamed in the firelight. As Voss issued orders, his laugh a guttural echo of cruelty. Elias had assumed the man was long gone, buried under tons of rock. But the mountains held secrets better than any grave. If Sloan's back, he's not just stirring trouble. He's got a plan. We need to ride out and see for ourselves. Amelia nodded, her hand finding his in a gesture that had become second nature. "Kane wants us to scout discreetly at first light. But Elias, if this pulls you back into the past..." He squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth that had thawed his frozen soul. "The past is always there, Amelia. But we're facing it together now. That's what makes it different." They spent the evening inside by the hearth, sharing a meal of venison stew and cornbread baked from Amelia's family recipe. She spread out old maps on the table, tracing routes through the rugged terrain of Silver Ridge, a network of mines that had fueled the territory's economy since the 1860s gold rush. American history was etched into these hillsdales of boomtowns rising overnight, fortunes won and lost, and the inevitable corruption that followed wealth like a shadow. Amelia's father had documented much of it in his journals, hidden entries hinting at a broader conspiracy: Eastern bankers and politicians who had bankrolled Voss's operations in exchange for control over land grants and mineral rights. As the fire crackled, Elias voiced his growing suspicions. Voss was the face, but Sloan handled the ledgers. If he surfaced, he might have proof of higher involvement, maybe even railroad barons. This could be bigger than we thought. Amelia's eyes met his, fierce with resolve. "Then we expose it all. My father died fighting this rot. I won't let it fester again." The next morning dawned gray and foreboding, with low clouds threatening rain. They saddled up and rode north, the trail climbing steadily into the pines. Elias led, his mountain-honed senses alert to every snapped twig and distant echo. Amelia rode close, her rifle across her saddle, a reminder of her 6 years as a hunter of justice. The path wound through familiar landscapes, dense forests where elk grazed, rocky outcrops overlooking valleys dotted with ranch homesteads. This was the America Elias had once fled, a land of opportunity laced with peril, where men like Voss preyed on the weak. By midday, they reached the fringes of Silver Ridge, a sprawling camp of weathered tents, shanties, and towering head frames over mine shafts. The air hummed with the clang of picks and the rumble of carts. Miners in grimy overalls hauling loads under the watchful eyes of foremen. Smoke from smelters hung heavy, mixing with the metallic tang of earth. Elias and Amelia tethered their horses at a livery stable and blended into the crowd, pulling hats low to avoid recognition. Whispers were easy to catch in the saloons and supply stores. "Sloan's back," one grizzled prospector muttered over a mug of ale. "Says Voss was scapegoated by that judge's daughter and her hermit lover. Got documents proving they planted evidence." Amelia's fists clenched under the table, but Elias laid a calming hand on her knee. "Let them talk. We learn more that way." Another voice joined. "He's holding a meeting tonight at the old stamp mill, promising shares in a new vein if we back him against the law." They slipped away as dusk fell, making their way to the abandoned mill on the camp's edge. The building was a relic of better days, its massive crushers silent and rusted. Lights flickered through broken windows, and shadows moved inside. Elias and Amelia crept close, hiding behind stacked barrels of discarded ore. Peering through a gap, they saw Garrett Sloane Aline, scarred man with a perpetual sneer standing on a makeshift platform, addressing 30 or so armed men. "Listen up," Sloane barked, his voice gravelly from years underground. "Harlan Voss built this territory, and they hanged him on lies spun by Amelia Caldwell and Elias Hawthorne. But I've got the real truth ledgers hidden since the old days, showing Judge Caldwell took bribes himself. Eastern money men wanted Voss out to grab the mines. Join me and we'll take him back. Riches for all who stand with us." Elias felt bile rise in his throat. The ledgers were a fabrication, but the crowd murmured approval, fists pounding tables. Then a figure stepped from the shadows, Deputy Lyle Harlan, one of Marshal Kane's men. Clapping Sloane on the back, "I've got eyes inside Willow Creek," Harlan said. "Caldwell and Hawthorne are poking around. We can set a trap, make it look like a mining accident." Betrayal hit like a sledgehammer. Harlan had been at Voss's trial, had sworn loyalty to the new order. Elias and Amelia retreated silently, hearts racing as they mounted up and rode hard through the night. Rain began to fall, turning the trail to mud, but they pushed on, arriving in Willow Creek soaked and exhausted. Marshal Kane was waiting in his office, a lantern burning low, his face drained of color as they recounted the scene. "Harlan, he's been my right hand for years. If he's turned, how many others? We need to act fast," Amelia urged. "Sloane's rallying an army. Those ledgers could sway the town if they're believed." Kane rubbed his temples. "I'll assemble a posse, but we must be sure. Ride back with me at dawn. Confront Harlan directly." Doubt crept in as Elias lay awake that night, Amelia asleep beside him. Was Kane clean or part of the rot? The next day, they rode out with a small group of trusted deputies, but tension hung thick. As they neared Silver Ridge, shots ambushed them from the Roque Sloane's men, tipped off. The firefight was brutal. Bullets whizzed, horses reared, men fell. Elias shielded Amelia, firing back with precision honed from survival. "It's a setup," he shouted. Kane fought fiercely, dropping to attackers, but Harlan emerged, gun trained on the marshal. "Sorry, boss. Sloane pays better." Amelia's derringer cracked, wounding Harlan's leg. He fled, but the damage was Donetrist shattered. They routed the ambushers, capturing one who spilled under questioning. Sloane had allies in Washington. A senator named Edmund Blackwell, who had profited from Voss's land deals and now feared exposure. Back in town, posters defaming Amelia and Elias appeared, liars and murderous justice for Voss. Old friends turned wary, shops refused service. Elias faced confrontations in the street. "You hid in the hills 'cause you knew the truth, didn't ya?" Caldwell's girl twisted it all. The erosion of faith stirred Elias's old ghost's Rebecca's screams, his guilt. One stormy night, he considered fleeing back to his cabin, but Amelia found him packing. "Don't you dare, Elias. This is our fight. My father's journals mention Blackwell funneled money through the mines. If we find proof, we end this." They delved into the journals, decoding entries about hidden caches and abandoned shafts. "There's one near the old mill," Elias said. "Let's go." They slipped out under cover of darkness, evading patrols. The shaft was treacherous, ladders rotting, but they descended, lanterns flickering. At the bottom, a locked chest yielded to Elias's tools, real ledgers detailing Blackwell's bribes, Voss's cut, Sloane's roll. But as they ascended, Sloane's voice echoed above. "Well, if it ain't the heroes. Drop the books, or I drop you." Trapped, they fought Amelia firing upward, Elias climbing fast. A desperate struggle ensued at the mouth, fists and knives in the rain. Sloane overpowered Elias, knife to throat, but Amelia's shot grazed him, allowing Elias to throw him down the shaft. Wounded but victorious, they returned with the evidence. Kane arrested Harlan, exposed the conspiracy. Blackwell's name surfaced, triggering federal inquiries. The town rallied, justice prevailing. Yet, whispers of a greater threat lingered, a secret society tied to Blackwell, plotting from the shadows. As the revelations from Garrett Sloane's captured ledgers rippled through the territorial courts, exposing ties to powerful figures in Washington and igniting federal investigations that promised to uproot decades of systemic corruption, Elias Hawthorne and Amelia Caldwell found themselves thrust into a final confrontation that would test not only their alliance, but the very principles of justice they had sworn to uphold. Winter had settled over Willow Creek like a heavy blanket, the Montana foothills blanketed in snow that muffled the sounds of daily life. Elias's home, once a symbol of his tentative re-entry into society, now felt like a fortress under siege. Federal agents had arrived weeks after Sloane's defeat, poring over the documents Elias and Amelia had retrieved from the mine shaft. Senator Edmund Blackwell's name appeared, repealed libribs funneled through shell companies, land grabs disguised as railroad expansions, and assassinations ordered to silence whistleblowers like Judge Caldwell. Blackwell, a silver-haired statesman from the East Coast with a reputation for eloquence in Congress, had built his fortune on the backs of frontier exploitation. The agents confirmed what Sloane had hinted. Blackwell wasn't just involved, he was the architect, a puppet master who had used men like Voss and Sloane as disposable tools. Elias paced the living room, the floorboards creaking under his boots, while Amelia sat at the table, her green eyes scanning a stack of telegrams from Washington. The room was warmed by a roaring fire, casting flickering shadows that danced like uneasy spirits. Outside, the wind howled, carrying flurries that obscured the distant mountains where Elias had once hidden from the world. Willow Creek had rallied behind them after Sloane's arrest, parades in the streets, editorials in the local gazette praising their heroism. But now, with Blackwell's influence reaching into the highest echelons, threats had escalated. Anonymous letters arrived daily, warnings scrawled in crude script, promising retribution if they testified before the grand jury. "Elias," Amelia said, breaking the silence, her voice steady but laced with fatigue, "the agents say Blackwell's pulling strings to discredit us. He's claiming the ledgers are forgeries, planted by radicals to undermine the government. If we don't find irrefutable proof, something tying him directly to the murder, sir, might lose everything." He stopped pacing and knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. The touch, once foreign after 20 years of isolation, now grounded him. "We've come too far to back down. Your father's journals mentioned a safe house in the capital, where Blackwell kept his personal records. If we can get there." Amelia's expression hardened. "It's 1,000 miles away, through hostile territory, and with his reach, we'd be walking into a lion's den. But you're right, we have no choice. Justice isn't just about hanging outlaws, it's about toppling the empires that breed them." They decided to travel incognito, posing as a married couple heading east for family matters. Marshal Kane, cleared of any suspicion after Harlan's betrayal was exposed as isolated coercion, provided forged papers and a small escort of trusted men. The journey began at dawn, a wagon loaded with supplies rumbling out of Willow Creek under a steel-gray sky. The trail east cut through the vast American plains-endless grasslands, where buffalo once roamed in herds numbering millions, now dotted with homesteads claimed under the Homestead Act. Elias drove the team, his eyes scanning the horizon for ambushes, while Amelia rode shotgun, her rifle hidden under a blanket. Days blurred into a grueling trek, crossing swollen rivers on ferries, camping under starlit skies where coyotes howled, and passing through boomtowns like Billings and Fargo, where saloons buzzed with tales of the Wild West's fading glory. Elias shared stories of his solitary years, the quiet beauty of mountain sunrises, the loneliness that had nearly consumed him, while Amelia recounted her 6 years of undercover pursuit, the close calls and moral compromises that had hardened her resolve. Their bond deepened, conversations turning to dreams of a future, perhaps a quiet ranch, children running in the fields, a life unmarred by violence. But danger shadowed them. In a dusty Nebraska town, they were ambushed at a way station, hired guns sent by Blackwell, their accents betraying Eastern origins. The fight was swift and brutal, bullets shattering windows, Elias wrestling an assailant to the ground while Amelia's shots felled to more. One survivor gasped a confession before dying. The senator. He knows you're coming. He's got spies everywhere. The incident forced a moral dilemma. Elias, haunted by the blood on his hands, questioned the cycle of violence. How many more have to die, Amelia? We've become what we hate, killers in the name of justice. She bandaged a graze on his arm, her touch gentle. It's not the same. They chose this path. But if there's a way to end it without more blood, we'll find it. They pressed on, arriving in Washington after weeks of hardship. The capital was a stark contrast to the frontier. Grand marble buildings lining wide avenues. Gas lamps illuminating throngs of politicians in top hats and ladies in bustled dresses. America in 1885 was a nation on the cusp of industrial might, surging with railroads connecting coast to coast, yet riddled with inequality. From the plight of native tribes displaced by expansion to laborers striking in factories, Blackwell's mansion overlooked the Potomac, opulent estate guarded by private security. Using contacts from Amelia's father's old network, a sympathetic journalist, and a disillusioned Adethi infiltrated under cover of night. The safe house was a hidden vault in the basement, locked behind a false wall. As they cracked it open, heart-pounding tension built. Inside, stacks of correspondence, bank records, and a diary in Blackwell's hand detailing orders for assassinations, including Rebecca's and Judge Caldwell's. But alarms sounded. Blackwell's men swarmed. A chase ensued through the mansion's labyrinthine halls, gunfire echoing off crystal chandeliers. Elias and Amelia fought back to back, his strength complementing her precision. Cornered in the study, Blackwell himself appeared, pistol in hand, his face twisted in aristocratic disdain. You frontier vermin think you can topple me? I've built this nation. Your justice is a farce. Here came the ultimate dilemma. Blackwell offered a deal: destroy the evidence, take a fortune, and walk away. Violence begets violence, he sneered. Spare me and end the cycle, or kill me and become monsters. Elias's finger trembled on the trigger, memories of Rebecca flooding back, the guilt, the loss. Amelia hesitated too, her green eyes reflecting the firelight. We could expose him alive, she whispered. Let the courts decide. Redemption over revenge. In a pivotal moment, Elias lowered his gun. You're right. We're better than this. They subdued Blackwell, binding him as federal agents. Tipped off by their contact burst in. The senator's arrest made headlines nationwide, his trial a spectacle that dismantled his empire. Corrupt officials fell, reforms swept through Congress, and the territory breathed free at last. Back in Willow Creek, spring bloomed as Elias and Amelia married in a simple ceremony, the town celebrating their heroes. Elias built an addition to the house for a family, while Amelia founded a justice foundation in her father's name. They had chosen redemption over endless violence, proving that true change came from exposing truth, not just spilling blood. Years later, as they sat on the porch watching their children play, Elias reflected on the journey from isolation to connection, from vengeance to hope. Some battles were won with guns, but the greatest victories came from the courage to choose mercy. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below, especially on the themes of violence and injustice in everyday life. Do you believe redemption is possible for those entrenched in corruption? Or is violence sometimes the only path to justice? Take a stand and express your views. I'd love to hear how these elements play out in your own perspectives.